My name was Zaki. I was a humble Imam, often regarded as a voice of authority in my community. Respected, yes. But revered? That was a different story entirely. Beneath the weight of my robes, I carried a truth that felt heavier than any doctrine I preached. I stood at the pulpit, speaking the words of our faith, but inside, a silent storm raged. I questioned everything, wrestling with an unsettling void that prayers couldn't fill. And then, in an instant, that internal struggle was thrust into
chaos. It was the night when darkness collided with light, not just outside, but within me. After a horrific car accident, I found myself suspended between realms, in a state of clinical death. In that disorienting void, I was embraced by an intense, radiant light. And there he stood, the figure I had only known through whispers, Jesus. He called my name, not with judgment, but with love that ruptured the very foundation of my beliefs. He revealed truths that shattered my understanding of faith
and freedom, unraveling the tightly woven fabric of obedience I had lived by. As I returned to consciousness, I was thrust into a whirlwind of anguish. To speak of my experience would label me a heretic, yet to remain silent would suffocate the newfound truth that burned within me. I was torn between loyalty to my family and community, and an undeniable calling that promised liberation. In the days that followed, I reflected on the spiritual warfare enveloping not just my life, but the world around me. An unseen battle against a tyranny disguised as piety, where fear held dominion over faith. But there was a flicker of hope. In secret, I began to explore the testimony of others who had walked this perilous path, their stories lighting the way through the shadows of doubt. I was no longer alone. Each shared experience fortified my spirit, compelling me toward a life of authenticity, a call to embrace my identity anew. Now I stand on the precipice of a daring mission, a purpose that stirs within me, urging me to share that which is often shunned. As I delve deeper into the true message of Jesus, I understand that this battle is not just mine. It's for every soul imprisoned by the chains of misinformation. Join me as I unravel the power of revelation and witness the glorious transformation awaiting those who dare to surrender to the light. Before we dive in, I invite you to share where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Your voice matters. And if you love Jesus and yearn for truth, subscribe to Truth from Beyond. What lies ahead isn't merely a testament, it's an awakening, and you don't want to miss this journey. In the heart of Jakarta, I lived a life filled with routine and reverence, my days enveloped in the rituals of Islam. As an Imam, I was respected in my community, yet behind my austere exterior lay a deep, unshakable fear. Each prayer echoed with obedience, each sermon weighed down by the unspoken pressure to conform. We were teachers of doctrine, yet within the walls of our mosque, I felt an unrelenting sense of dread lurking just beneath the surface. The community thrived on adherence and submission, but it became painfully clear that we were also prisoners of a hidden agenda, a manipulation by the elite that perpetuated a cycle of deception and fear. One fateful night changed everything. I was making my way home after an evening gathering when I lost control of my vehicle, slamming into another car. The impact knocked me unconscious, and in that moment, the physical world slipped away, giving way to a vibrant void that held me in its grasp. Floating in this liminal space, I felt both terrified and liberated, existing in a realm devoid of the constraints that governed my life. It was here that I encountered Jesus, a figure radiating love and understanding, standing before me in a light that chased away every shadow of doubt and hesitation. "Listen to me," he said, his voice enveloping me like a warm embrace. Here, at the edge of existence, I was offered revelations far beyond my comprehension. Jesus unveiled the truths hidden from those who clung tightly to the confines of their beliefs. A hidden agenda that manipulated the masses, fostering division and hatred. I began to see the broader implications of our reality. The spiritual war was not just within my heart, but a celestial conflict playing out on earth. Religious leaders, including myself, often served as unwitting pawns in a game orchestrated by those who sought power over truth, a grim reality that deeply unsettled me. In vivid scenes, I witnessed the consequences of this manipulation, a world steeped in violence, where wars were waged not for righteousness, but for the profits of the few. The elites continued their stranglehold on both faith and politics, and I realized how easily fear could extinguish the light of truth. Communities struggled against one another instead of uniting against the real enemy, the deception that fed on our divisions. I felt the weight of the reality I had denied, the immense responsibility I had to share this truth, to awaken others from the slumber imposed upon them. My heart raced as I fought against the current of fear, knowing that every thought and belief was being scrutinized against the backdrop of a greater revelation. Suddenly, I felt the pull of consciousness returning me to my physical body. As I gasped for air, my heart thundered with panic and hope. The fear of repercussions from my newfound understanding loomed large, yet a spark ignited within me. I had seen glimpses of a profound awakening, and I could not turn back. My life as an Imam had been defined by fear, yet I now longed to embrace the potential for transformation. Would my community accept this journey that diverged from our traditional beliefs? The burden of expectation settled heavily upon me, yet the truth I had experienced demanded expression. I could not ignore my calling to share the light of truth, no matter the potential fallout. As I faced the uncertainty ahead, I resolved to take the first step into this new chapter. I envisioned gathering fellow believers who were not afraid to question the status quo, who craved a deeper understanding of the divine. The fear of isolation no longer paralyzed me. Instead, it fueled my passion to challenge the deception that had long masked our reality. I knew this would not be easy, and the risk involved weighed heavily on my conscience. But in that breathtaking moment of revelation, I felt a fire ignite within me, a calling to transform the lives of those around me and to bring them out of the shadows and into the light of awakening. Each breath carried the possibility of change, and I realized I was no longer alone. The journey ahead beckoned with urgency, a chance to shatter the chains of tradition and embrace a life filled with profound truth and overwhelming love. As I stood at the podium, preaching passionately to my congregation, I could feel their admiration wash over me. I was Zaki, a respected Imam in our community, known for my eloquence and deep spirituality. Every word I spoke seemed to resonate, affirming my role as a guide for those seeking enlightenment. But beneath this facade of strength, I battled a profound emptiness that grew increasingly suffocating. I lived in a world where questioning was discouraged and obedience was celebrated. Yet inside, I felt more disconnected than ever. This chasm between my public persona and private turmoil cultivated a deep sense of isolation that I dared not share, even with those closest to me. Late at night, when the world outside grew quiet, I often found myself lost in thought, grappling with feelings of inadequacy and doubt. The rituals that once anchored me began to feel like shackles, binding me to a tradition that was no longer fulfilling. I craved something more, a genuine connection to the divine, a truth that transcended the limitations of our accepted narratives. It was during one of those restless nights, consumed by struggle, that fate intervened. An unexpected incident sparked a chain of events that would redefine everything I thought I knew. I remember the moment clearly. I was driving home after an evening prayer session, my mind racing with conflicting thoughts, when suddenly I lost control of my car. The world spun wildly before I was engulfed in darkness. For what felt like an eternity, I floated in a void, suspended between life and death. In that state of liminality, surrounded by nothingness, a brilliant light pierced through the darkness, and I found myself standing before Jesus. His presence was overwhelming, radiating with love and understanding that felt like nothing I had ever experienced. "Zaki," he spoke, the words reverberating through my very soul. At that moment, I was overwhelmed with revelations. Jesus unveiled truths that had been obscured by the very doctrines I had devoted my life to. Teaching. He showed me the hidden agenda we had all been puppets to, the manipulation orchestrated by the elite who thrived on our ignorance and fear. I witnessed the spiritual war unfolding across the globe, the ongoing deception that perpetuated conflict and division. The realization struck me like lightning. There was a greater power at play, keeping us separated from the truth and one another. The visions I experienced were both beautiful and horrifying. I saw the widespread impact of religious and political ideologies that divided us, how technology had become a tool for control rather than connection. My heart ached for the countless souls trapped under the weight of societal expectations, unable to break free and search for deeper truths. In that sacred moment, I understood my own journey was not just about personal salvation, but a calling to awaken others, to challenge the narratives that kept our spirits confined. Yet as I returned to consciousness, the terror of what lay ahead gripped me. How could I share these revelations within a community that valued conformity over questioning? Would I become an outcast for daring to seek the truth beyond the chains of tradition? As I grappled with the significance of what I had witnessed, I felt an insatiable urge to step into the light of this truth. I knew I needed to embrace my newfound understanding and share it, even if it came at great cost. Every heartbeat echoed the urgency of the spiritual war that demanded action. The fear of what I was about to face faded as I resolved to transform my pain into purpose. I envisioned gathering those who, like me, longed for authenticity in their spiritual journeys. This was not merely about my awakening, it was about leading others to their own. The path before me was fraught with uncertainty, but I felt resolute. The change had begun, and I could feel the stirrings of awakening calling us all to rise together. During our nightly prayers, I began to feel an unsettling discontent gnawing at my spirit. Each recorded verse I recited started to feel hollow, the depth of my words slipping through my fingers like sand. I am Zaki, a respected Imam in a community deeply rooted in tradition. Yet the more I stood before my congregation, the more I questioned the very doctrines I had devoted my life to upholding. My heart felt heavy with an unexpressed turmoil, a nagging sense that something was amiss beneath the surface of our practices. The spiritual war, raging within me, grew louder, yet I felt silenced by the fear of judgment and rejection from those I held dear. As nights passed, the weight of those questions morphed into haunting nightmares, visions that tore at the fabric of my reality. I dreamt of a world ablaze with conflict, where innocence was lost, and souls languished in the grip of fear. Each dream was laced with an urgency that resonated in the depths of my being, challenging the beliefs I had long held as unassailable truths. How could I continue preaching about peace when the world outside was fraught with deception and division? I realized that the fears I had suppressed were calling for acknowledgement, begging me to confront the hidden agenda that lay beneath our rituals and prayers. It was during one particularly vivid nightmare that everything shifted. I found myself wandering through an endless desert, a place where the sun beat down mercilessly, and despair hung in the air like a heavy fog. In the distance I saw a figure illuminated by a soft, golden light, Jesus. As I approached, his presence enveloped me, radiating love and understanding that pierced through the walls I had built around my heart. "Zaki," he said softly, "you've lost your way, but I'm here to show you the truth." The moment felt transcendent, and my fears dissipated as he revealed the revelations meant to awaken my spirit. In that divine encounter, Jesus unveiled profound truths about the manipulation that had been ingrained within our beliefs. I could see how the elite had woven a deceitful tapestry, a narrative that kept humanity divided and focused on conflict rather than unity. I witnessed the broader implications of our spiritual war, how it extended beyond personal struggles to societal structures designed to keep us blind to the truth. The visions shook me to my core. Wars fought in the name of ideals that ultimately served only to enrich the powerful while oppressing the vulnerable. I felt a fire ignite within me, a rebuke against the very fears that had plagued my nights. As the revelations unfolded, I realized my role was not merely to accept these truths, but to share them. A sense of urgency coursed through me. I needed to awaken others who walked in the shadows of deception. But how could I, a respected Imam, speak against the very tides that had shaped my identity? The stakes felt impossibly high, and I wrestled with the fear of ostracism from my community. Yet, as I gazed into Jesus' eyes, I understood that this was a pivotal moment not just for me, but for all who suffered under the weight of lies. I had been given the gift of awakening, and now it was time to embrace it with every ounce of courage within me. The spiritual war was real, and confronting it required a leap of faith into an uncertain future. The thought of what lay ahead filled me with both dread and exhilaration. My life was about to change forever. It was a typical evening when everything changed. I had just finished leading prayers at the mosque, my voice echoing through the halls, resonating with the faithful gathered before me. Yet, as I stepped outside, a growing emptiness weighed heavily on my heart. I am Zaki, a respected Imam known for my deep spirituality, but inside, I was wrestling with an unsettling discontent that no one could see. Each recitation and sermon felt like a burden, a stark contrast to the truth I desperately sought. The world, a place filled with pain and division, seemed so far from the peace I preached about. I felt trapped in a life defined by tradition, unable to voice the questions that churned within. That night, as I drove home under the dim streetlights, my mind raced with thoughts of faith, doubt, and the unseen forces that manipulated our understanding of the divine. The car's tires screeched, and before I knew it, I was careening off the road, colliding violently with a tree. Darkness enveloped me instantly, and I lost all sensation of pain. In that void, I was released from my physical body, floating in a realm that felt both terrifying and liberating. I was drawn into a dark desert, desolate and vast, where the weight of the world faded away. It was in this incredible state that I was graced with a visit from Jesus, who stood before me as a figure of radiant light. "Zaki, the truth must be revealed," he said, and his voice penetrated deep into my soul. In that moment, layers of deception began to peel back, exposing the spiritual war that had long been waged around us. Jesus revealed how the elite had controlled narratives, twisting doctrines for their gain while keeping the masses in darkness. I saw visions of conflict, division, and manipulation, a hidden agenda at play that governed not just our lives but the very fabric of society. My heart raced as I grasped the enormity of what I was witnessing. The religions I had revered, the practices I upheld, were intertwined with a web of deception that sought to maintain power through ignorance and fear. The imagery flashed before me: leaders waging wars in the name of peace, communities divided by ideological lines, technology used as a tool for surveillance rather than connection. I felt the urgency in Jesus' presence, a calling for me to awaken, not just myself, but to help others see the light breaking through the clouds of confusion. As he shared with me the beauty of genuine love and connection, I realized my life had been steered by fear more than by faith. This new knowledge flooded over me, each revelation compounding a realization that I had the power to change the narrative, to ignite an awakening in those who felt as lost as I had been. But with this revelation came an unmistakable weight. How could I return to my life as an imam and preach the truth I had been given? I felt conflicted, knowing that such a journey might lead to rejection from my community. Would they label me a heretic for daring to question the doctrines we held sacred? Each heartbeat echoed with fear and hope intertwined. I had witnessed a new reality and recognized that my mission was now set before me, one that demanded courage to confront the hidden agenda at work in our faith and society. As I lingered in that desert, the realization of my responsibility took root. I could not turn away from this moment or the truth I had been entrusted with. I needed to find a way to bridge the gap between my awakening and the life I would return to, knowing that the journey ahead would be filled with uncertainty and potential conflict. When I awoke, the sunlight streamed into the room, casting a warm glow that felt at odds with the storm brewing inside me. The car accident had been a jarring awakening not just in my body, but in my spirit. I grasped the sheets tightly, my mind still reeling from the encounter with Jesus, the profound revelations that had reshaped my understanding of life, faith, and the world around me. But as reality set in, I was faced with an impossible choice: confess my experience and risk being labeled a heretic, or remain silent, burying the truth deep within me while continuing a life steeped in fear and pretense. The weight of this dilemma felt crushing, each breath a reminder of the path I could either embrace or deny. Every moment of hesitation brought the shadows of doubt creeping back. What would my family think? My community revered me. I was their guide, a figure of authority in matters of faith. Yet beneath that respect lay a potent fear, a fear of rejection that was almost paralyzing. I imagined the scornful looks, the hushed whispers, the harsh words that would inevitably follow if I revealed my experience. The hidden agenda that had long controlled our beliefs threatened to engulf me in the very deception I had fought against in my dreams. I had witnessed the truth, but what good was it if it meant losing everything I had ever known? I recalled the vivid images Jesus had shown me, the spiritual war that raged on, beyond our understanding, fueled by manipulation and the machinations of the elite. I could feel the urgency of his message vibrating within me. This wasn't just about personal revelation. It was a call to awaken others, trapped in the same cycle of obedience and fear. The truth was a double-edged sword, capable of cutting through the lies we had accepted as reality. Yet, as I stood on the precipice of this decision, the stakes seemed unbearably high. How could I harness this knowledge into action without losing myself in the process? The thought of continuing my previous life felt increasingly unbearable, as if I were living a lie. Each time I donned the robe of an imam, I was reminded of the dichotomy within me, the spiritual awakening versus the preordained path that defined my existence. I envisioned the pain of waking up day after day, reciting verses I no longer felt connected to, and delivering sermons filled with platitudes instead of the profound truths I had uncovered. What kind of man would I be if I chose silence over truth? The idea filled me with despair, and I sensed a growing urgency to break free from the chains that had held me captive for so long. Ultimately, I knew I was faced with a critical juncture in my life. My heart ached to be a vessel for the awakening that Jesus had ignited within me, to help others see the light beyond the shadow of deception that cloaked so many lives. But the fear of alienation, the possibility of becoming a pariah within. My own community loomed large. Could I really bear this mantle of truth, knowing it would reshape my relationships, my family ties, and my place in a world I had long devoted myself to? The tension mounted, and I felt as though I were standing on the edge of a chasm, looking down into the unknown. But sometimes, the greatest journeys begin with a leap of faith, and I could feel that weight pushing me forward, urging me to embrace the awakening I had experienced, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of my awakening, a deep sense of urgency took root within me. I found solace in secret explorations of my newfound beliefs, turning to videos of former Muslims who had similar encounters with Jesus. Each account resonated so profoundly, echoing my own internal struggles and the revelations brought forth in that dark desert. I would sit in the quiet of my room, watching their testimonies unfold, feeling both comforted and terrified by my desire to embrace the truth they described. In those moments, I felt a profound sense of community, understanding that this journey was shared by many, yet I was haunted by the fear of losing my identity, the role that had shaped me for so long. Every testimony I absorbed sparked a flame within, igniting my spirit and pushing me closer to the edges of my past life. They spoke of a hidden agenda manipulated by the elite to keep people in darkness and fear, about how systems of control thrived on deception, truths that were now undeniably clear. To me, I could feel the pull of this awakening threatening to sever ties with everything I took pride in. The tradition, the community, the identity of being an Imam, all intertwined with a system that discouraged questioning in favor of compliance. My heart raced as I grappled with the implications. Here I was, standing at the threshold of a spiritual war, unsure of where I belonged. The fear of ostracism loomed large in my thoughts, haunting me like a persistent shadow. What would my family and peers think if they knew I was exploring this new path? Would I be condemned as a heretic, labeled as someone who had betrayed the very fabric of our faith? These thoughts churned in my mind, fueling my anxiety, yet the pull of truth was insatiable. I needed to delve deeper, to understand the realities beyond the walls I had built around myself. Yet, as I watched these powerful stories, I also realized I wasn't alone in this journey. Each person represented a thread woven into a larger tapestry of awakening, and together, we were part of something transformative. As the days passed, these videos became my lifeline, a source of inspiration and courage. I clung to the words of those who had risen from the ashes of their former lives, finding strength in their vulnerability. They outlined how Jesus' revelations had shattered their preconceived notions, how their spiritual awakening had liberated them from years of indoctrination. The urgency of their messages resonated deeply. I felt like I was awakening from a long slumber. The more I listened, the more determined I became to seek my own truth, no matter the cost. I envisioned a world where the deception that had clouded our collective consciousness was exposed, where we could stand together in the light of understanding. Yet the internal conflict persisted. Despite the solace I found within this community, there was an ever-present fear of losing everything I had ever known. I was torn between the comfort of my identity as an Imam and the compelling call of awakening that demanded I step into the unknown. The spiritual war I was waging within felt daunting, a battle between the tradition I had upheld and the truth that was now undeniable. With each passing day, it became more clear to me that change was essential, not only for my well-being, but for the well-being of those around me. I felt the world shifting beneath my feet, the weight of the hidden agenda turning to light as I tentatively prepared to embrace the truth, reminding myself that this journey, although fraught with obstacles, could lead to profound transformation for many. In the aftermath of my awakening, a truth started to crystallize within me, a divine calling that demanded my attention. I felt the weight of my experience pressing down on my chest, urging me to share what I had learned. It was clear that this wasn't just a personal journey. It was part of a larger spiritual war. I couldn't ignore the revelations Jesus had imparted to me, the truth that exposed the hidden agenda crafted by the elite to keep us in bondage to lies and fear. This realization ignited a fire within me, a compulsion to break free from the societal norms that had dictated my life for so long. As I stood on the precipice of transformation, I began to formulate a plan. I knew that speaking my truth meant risking everything: my role in the community, my family's acceptance, and even my own sense of self. I wasn't just redefining my identity as an imam. I was stepping into the unknown, willing to confront the deception that had long surrounded us all. Each day that I hesitated, the voices of doubt crept into my mind, reminding me of the potential fallout. But with every reminder of the risks came the powerful urge to liberate myself from the chains that had held me captive for too many years. So I took a deep breath and began to share my journey, albeit cautiously at first. I started speaking to trusted friends who were open to the idea of questioning the status quo. My words took on a new resonance, echoing the truths I had felt during my near-death experience. I spoke of the spiritual battle we faced not just as individuals, but as a community, how we were complicit in the perpetuation of a narrative that served only to divide and conquer. I sensed a spark of understanding in their eyes, a flicker of recognition that they too had felt the invisible weight of conformity. As I delved deeper into discussions, I could feel a shift taking place around me. My friends began to express their own doubts, revealing that they too had felt a yearning for something more profound than the practices we had collectively embraced. The liberation I had discovered was contagious, beginning a ripple effect amongst those willing to seek the truth. Yet even as hope blossomed, I still felt the haunting fear of backlash from those who clung tightly to the established order. We were venturing into a territory fraught with uncertainty, aware of the societal pressures that could easily quash our awakening. In those moments, I realized that my mission extended beyond mere personal belief. It was about igniting a widespread awakening. How many others were trapped in cycles of fear and deception, unable to voice their struggles? I pondered the dire implications of remaining silent, of continuing to preach what I no longer believed. The longing to unveil these larger truths, to expose the influences of the elite and the manipulation of our beliefs, grew into a determination that I could not quell. Armed with the revelations of Jesus, I was compelled to act, to provoke thought and challenge the narratives that kept us divided. I could feel the spiritual war escalating around us, and I knew that the time for action was now. The questions swirled in my mind, but one truth remained clear. I had to deliver the message of awakening, no matter the cost. In the aftermath of that life-altering encounter with Jesus, I felt compelled to take drastic action. I knew staying in my familiar surroundings would be a constant reminder of the life I was leaving behind. So I decided to step into the unknown. With a heavy heart, I chose to abandon my old life, adopting a new name that symbolized my rebirth. I packed only the essentials and made my way to the desert, a place where I could breathe, reflect, and embrace the profound revelation that had reshaped my understanding of reality. The desert, with its vast emptiness, felt like a blank canvas, a perfect backdrop for a fresh start. As I walked through the arid landscape, I was reminded of the spiritual war we are all embroiled in, a battle that transcends physical realms. The quiet of the desert became both an external silence and an internal awakening. With every step, I felt the weight of centuries of deception lifted from my shoulders. I could sense that the journey before me was not merely to find solace, but to actively engage in a mission of evangelism. I felt an incredible urgency to share the truth of what I had learned, to help others who, like me, felt trapped in cycles of fear and manipulation. The thought alone filled me with both excitement and dread. During my days in the desert, I committed myself to prayer and reflection, seeking deeper understanding of the truths revealed to me. Jesus had shown me the power of love that cuts through the boundaries erected by religion, politics, and fear. Each revelation filled me with a fierce determination to return to the world, armed with the message of hope that liberation is possible. I became increasingly aware of the hidden agendas at play, how the elite have manipulated narratives to keep people compliant and divided. The more I learned, the more resolute I became in my mission to awaken others to these realities, to help them escape the clutches of a deceptive narrative that had governed their lives. Yet, despite this newfound sense of purpose, my heart ached for my family. I thought of their faces, the warmth of their love, and how my departure would shatter the illusion of harmony we had maintained. The fear of rejection gnawed at me, mingling with the conviction that I was doing the right thing. I knew the journey ahead would not be easy. I would be viewed as an outcast, a heretic for daring to challenge the status quo. But this conflict, the tension between my familial bonds and my spiritual awakening, became a crucial part of my story, one that I knew I had to navigate. As time passed in the desert, I began to visualize my mission clearly. I envisioned gatherings of lost souls coming together, all yearning for liberation from the lies they had been fed. Sharing my story felt like a sacred duty, one that could resonate with those who were suffering in silence. I could almost hear the whispers of others waiting for someone to ignite their own awakening. In the midst of this spiritual warfare, I felt the call to stand firm, to be the voice of truth amid a cacophony of deception. I knew I had to return to my community, not just to share my story, but to lead others into the light of understanding that I had discovered. As each day dawned, I prepared myself for the inevitable challenges, ready to take on the spiritual battles that lay ahead, armed with the revelation of a unifying truth that could heal and free us all. Now that you've journeyed with me through the shadows and into the light, I must ask you, what if everything you've been taught is just the tip of the iceberg? The truth I've uncovered goes far beyond my own experience. It reveals a world gripped by spiritual warfare, where unseen forces pull the strings of our beliefs. Each one of us is a vital part of this tapestry, intertwined in a cosmic struggle for truth and love that reaches far beyond our mortal existence. In standing before Jesus, I found not just the light of revelation, but the promise that we are called to awaken from a slumber too many have accepted as the norm. The manipulation we've endured isn't just happening in distant lands. It creeps silently into our homes, our hearts. Each of us has a role to play in this unfolding narrative, and the urgency to act grows with every passing moment. Are we willing to step out of complacency and into the light? Will we dare to question everything we hold sacred, just like I did? I want to hear your stories. Have you felt that same tug of truth pulling at your heart? Share your experiences in the comments. Your voice matters, and together, we can forge a path toward awareness and awakening. Do not underestimate the power of your testimony. It could ignite a spark in someone else who is listening, yearning for freedom just as you are. If this powerful message resonated with you, don't leave without subscribing to Truth from Beyond. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into revelations that await. You'll be the first to hear about extraordinary stories that reveal the profound mysteries of faith and existence. Stories that will transform your understanding of the world around you. Join me next time as I share the compelling testimony of a woman who faced her own near-death experience and found unexpected clarity in a world shrouded in darkness. I'm Zaki, and thank you for walking this path with me. Remember, we are never truly alone. The truth calls to those who are ready to receive it. Until next time, embrace the light within.